So before we get into this episode, I just want to do a little intro because I was live streaming while I was recording so I was live streaming to Facebook, and my connection was like a little wonky in the beginning, so I got a little bit distracted and cut off. So if you hear me talking about that, that's what was going on. Just FYI, but I'm so glad to be back. This episode has been marinating. Okay, so I'm just bringing you guys on a journey, catching you up on life and just what God has shown me in this season. And so I hope that you are encouraged. And also, all right, I'm getting back into this podcasting thing, so I got to remind y'all, if you haven't gotten your copy of my book, Thrive, How to Let Go, Find Purpose, and Flourish When Staying Seems Easier, you can get it right now on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, or directly from me. So if you haven't got your copy, what are you doing? What are you doing? It's not too late though. Actually, it might be right on time. So I might need to go do that. So yeah, pause this episode, go get your copy of my book, and then hit play because I can't wait to share with you all the things that have been going on in my life. I'm on 10, okay? That's why I'm tripping over my words. I'm so excited. But yeah, let's get into it. Hey guys, we are back. We're back. Okay. Everybody's been asking me like, where have you been? Why haven't I seen a new episode of Get Up 10? What's been going on? You all right? And we're back. Okay. Cause I'm never, ever, to my knowledge at this point in my life, stopping this podcast. I take this podcast so seriously, and it's like one of my greatest projects so far. So I cannot wait to continue to do it and just to see where it goes and the guests that we have. But I probably will be taking breaks from time to time because I'm learning how healthy it is, especially as a creative, when you are creating, when you are making stuff, how important those breaks are and that rest is. So this summer, I desperately was in need of a break, and that I had. And we're going to talk about that because I do want to catch you guys up to what I've been learning so far this year and how my summer was and all that kind of stuff. So I took a break for the summer because, and by the way, I have like my main points, but I don't really have notes. So I have no idea where this is going to go. I have no idea how long I'm going to talk for, but it's fine. We're just going to do it, and it's going to be great, and there's going to be gems, and yeah, it's going to be great. So anyways, at the beginning of this summer, I was exhausted. Like, my Facebook Live just ended. Oh, let me start over. Okay, we're back now on the Wi-Fi. So anyways, this summer I was literally so exhausted there was just so much going on, as always. Like, there's always so much going on, but to be like more specific, it was my first mommy milestone, having my daughter in preschool. She did full days of school, full school year. So that was a big first and a big adjustment for us because we are night owls. Okay, we will stay up all night, but this whole like waking up early thing, not a fan. And if you know anything about me, you know, like, the only thing that I like to wake up early for, I won't even say like to, because that's not even like, it's just like I do it. The only thing that I wake up early for is the gym. Otherwise, I'm like, what am I waking up for? Like, I'm such a night owl. But I had to put on my big girl panties and wake up early and get my daughter to school on time, which even that was a little bit of a struggle. Like, let's just say we were at school pretty much 2 minutes before the bell rang every single day. But it's fine. We made it. And also, it was a big adjustment as a mom because, like I said, we are night owls. When I first had my daughter and before I had my daughter, I was working night shifts, and so we were just very adapted to that lifestyle. It was not really strict on like a bedtime or what time she had to wake up in the morning, and God knew better than to give me a kid that's gonna wake up at 6-7 a.m. When I hear some of the stories about your children waking up at that hour, I just don't know how you do it, because my daughter will sleep the morning away, and I'm so thankful. But yeah, so it was a big adjustment. We had to get to bed on time, we had to get up early in the morning, and then those days are just long. And then to add on to things, I volunteered at church for the first time, and I didn't just do one group, I did 2 groups. So it was like the beginning of the weeks were just so heavy because I had all these commitments, like Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday. I forgot the exact order, but I just had so many commitments that like Sunday night I was like, okay, like here we go, about to hit the ground running. Like we're not gonna have a break until like Thursday, and it was a lot. And the other thing with like serving and leading at church is that I was just like pouring out a lot, okay, because there's like so much spiritual warfare that comes when you are doing something for God. And then on top of that, like it was just a new role to me. I was leading groups with women that I didn't know very well at all, or that I thought I knew, and then later found out, oh, okay, you're not who I thought. So there was just so many things to navigate on top of each woman that would come to my table and the things that she's coming in the door with. And so it was a lot balancing that and like motherhood. It was a lot. So when school ended, I was depleted. I was just like, I need a break. I don't want to set an alarm for a long time. I want to sleep in for the foreseeable future. Don't ask me to do nothing. Don't ask me to commit to nothing, because I don't have it. I just didn't have it. And so that's how I started off my summer. I just rested, and it was so needed. And then I got to a point where it was like, okay, like we can't be sleeping in every day. Like we got to get back up again. We need to get up and get to the gym. Like, because when I was like a teenager and stuff, like growing up, I would sleep until 10-11 o'clock in the morning, no problem. And then even like working overnight as a nurse, I'll easily sleep through the day. But what I have found out is that in this chapter of my life, sleeping in until 10 and 11 in the morning, it's just not the best way to start my day. Like I feel such a shift in my energy and my mental space when I wake up early and work out versus like when I sleep in. So I had to force myself to get up and go to the gym. And so little by little, I was like, okay, we're coming back. I ended up taking a break from social media too. I didn't want to post. I didn't want to worry about what's trending. What am I posting today? I just stopped posting. So my real focus was just like myself and my daughter. And I really needed that to just reset and recharge. And I knew that like, okay, I've stepped into new territory, a new chapter, because I've never led in church before, or even like had a church home in the capacity that I do now. And I knew that like I didn't want to just stop what I had started, but I also knew like I cannot be burnt out and serving in my full capacity. It just doesn't work. So for the summer, I really just focused on myself and my daughter. And then on top of that, I did post about this on Facebook if you're following me, but my dad also had a heart transplant. And that was a whole another thing, because literally for a while he was having like visiting nurse services to come and check on him and just make sure his like IV access was looking good. However, the IV access, I'm kind of like using simpler terms, the IV access kept getting infected. So like one day, I think it was right before school ended, my dad was like, hey, I gotta go to the hospital. My IV line is infected again. Can you drop me off? So literally I dropped my dad off at the hospital, and he stayed in the hospital from that day for like over a month, which was crazy. It was really an experience for my family, because a lot of things shifted not having my father in the house. And it was definitely one of those moments of like, you don't know what you got until it's gone. Because my father's absence, my dad is not, I mean, like, he's a little bit loud, but he's not like too loud. But I definitely noticed the difference in the house without having my dad at home. And I also realized how much my dad helps me with my daughter. So I was down one babysitter. And then on top of that, just, like the questions in the back of my mind of like, how long is he going to be in the hospital? Is he going to have any complications? Like, when are we going to get this new heart? Just all the things, all the questions. And then, of course, like going on Google and looking up stuff, which can be a risky activity. But it was just really difficult. And then also just like seeing my dad in the hospital gown, like not being able to live life normally. And I don't know, it was just a lot. So for that reason as well, I was especially protective of my space because that was going on in my home. And then I knew like spiritually, I was not where I wanted to be. And so for all those reasons, I was like, I'm going to take a step back over the summer and just recharge and reset. And that was so important because I also knew that the key to me like bouncing back from this spiritually low place that I was in was going to be pouring into myself spiritually. So like getting right with God, getting closer to God. Like the word says like seek his kingdom first and all these things will be added to you. The devil does not want me to talk today because my Facebook keeps getting paused. Let me restart it again. But anyways, I was just saying how I knew the key to me bouncing back from this fatigue, this burnout, this low place that I was in to start the summer would be to replenish my spirit and really just like put God first. And another thing, there was just so many breakthroughs and things that happened over these, I can't believe it now, 8 months of this year that I'm going to get into a little bit. But one thing that I had to wrestle with over the last few months, especially with like my dad being sick and not knowing like, okay, how, like, do we have a few months left? Do we have a few years left? Like, do we have a few decades left? Is something going to happen tomorrow? With that uncertainty, it kind of, I will say, added on to me really like taking a close look at my daddy-daughter relationship. I think it started when he initially got his diagnosis of heart failure in 2019, and then coming back home from my abusive relationship again forced me to like pause and really analyze my daddy-daughter relationship again, because I feel like when you're in such an abusive relationship, a toxic relationship, when you're noticing unhealthy relationship patterns, it's really helpful to like pause and look at how you were raised and the things that your parents may or may not have taught you or instilled in you or normalized for you. And so I noticed that when I came back home after leaving my marriage, there was things that I wanted to fix in my, I wouldn't even say fix, like there was things that I wanted to improve in my relationship with my father. So then for him to get so sick with heart failure, it was like, are we going to have a chance to work on those things, or is this just like how it's going to end? And one thing for me personally with my dad is just like, I'm a very emotional person. If you know me, I'm very emotional. I'm a little extra, a little dramatic. It's fine, whatever. I like to think of it as my name is Ginger and I'm just adding a little bit of spice to your life, in my family's life, and everybody's life who I get to come across. So that's how I like to look at it. But anyways, I'm a very emotional person. And I will say, as I live life and learn, I am learning how to manage my emotions a little bit better. But being an emotional person and also being immature is a doozy, because there's just a lot of things that you complicate or like do wrong, let's just say. So one thing with my dad is that like my dad is not an emotional person like that. He's very much like numbers, facts, figures, what's the plan, organized, structure, strategy kind of guy. And so when I was in my emotional place and then I come to my like what's the facts, what's the main points kind of dad, we kind of like would butt heads, because I would be like, oh my gosh, like this is happening, and then my dad is like, hey, like relax, like all that emotion is not happening. I mean, it's all that emotion is not helping. And so I think there was like moments over the years where I just needed like kindness and gentleness, and I didn't receive that from my dad. And so there's just like some emotional healing that I'm walking through now as a woman. But I say that all that to say, with my dad getting a heart transplant and being in the hospital and undergoing this life-changing surgery that, you know, there's always that potential that he wouldn't make it out. I'll never forget the day that we got the text, the call. It was so crazy how it all happened, because we had been waiting for days and weeks to hear, okay, like, is today that day that he gets his heart? And he actually got the call around midnight, and like my siblings and I, we were up, but for whatever reason we didn't see the message till the next morning. So the next morning when I woke up, first of all, when I saw my phone, I was like shocked. I was like, oh my gosh, like today's the day, like we're finally here, like he's getting his new heart, it's happening. So I woke up, decided to hit the gym, because the gym and my mental health, they go together real bad. Okay. So woke up, hit the gym, and then straight from the gym went to the hospital to go visit my dad. And normally, like, somebody was always my mom was like always at the hospital with my dad, but for whatever reason, when I walked into his hospital room, it was just me and him, and we got to have like a father-daughter moment. And Facebook and this connection, we're not friends today, but anyways, we got to have a father-daughter moment, and I did get to see my dad emotional and vulnerable for, I don't know if that was like the first time in that capacity, probably the first time in my life. And that was such a healing moment for me, because like I said, I've always been that emotional girl, but I've never seen my dad emotional. And I always like wonder, you know, because my parents are really good at like handling stuff, but they don't always express their emotions. And I think part of that is just like generational differences. But for me, like I really connect with people based off of emotion. So to see my dad emotional and vulnerable, and to be able to share in his emotions and like love on him, give him a hug in that moment, meant so much to me as a daughter. Especially because one thing that I really had to process and understand as far as my father-daughter relationship was that just because my dad isn't the kind of dad that I think I should have based on what I see and hear from others and social media does not mean that my dad is not a great dad, because he is a great dad. He is a great man, and I'm blessed to be his daughter and to just watch how he functions as a man. And so I had to like navigate that conflict, or it's not even like a conflict. I had to navigate that tension of like, my dad is not the dad that I would make up in my head for myself, but that doesn't mean that he's not the dad that I need, or that he's not a great dad. And so I had to navigate that, and then to finally have that emotional breakthrough in the hospital room, it just really meant a lot. And so I've really appreciated everybody who has reached out to me and my family over the past few months, everybody who has loved on my family. My dad has been home for several weeks now. I'm losing count, and he's been doing so well, and I'm so proud of him. Like, after 24 hours of getting a new heart, he was already up and walking, and I'm just so thankful and grateful to God that he has had an amazing recovery, and that we get to have this new chapter as a family. And I'm so excited for the many more memories that we will get to make and that are to come, because that's always like the thought in the back of your head too, like, oh my gosh, like, am I gonna lose my dad? Like, who's gonna walk me down the aisle? Like, we still have so many more happy memories ahead of us. We still have weddings and babies and like all these major milestones, and is he gonna be there for that? But now I feel like such relief to know that like he does have more time, like God has added more years onto his life. So I wanted to touch on that. But let's go back to me being depleted at the beginning of this summer and how I got there, okay? Because we don't just start tired. There's definitely a shift and a change over time. So I want to talk about church and leading/serving at church and how that has been. It's been such a journey. It's been so beautiful. So the crazy part, because I've learned so much that I want to share. And the main idea here, I don't know where all I'm going to go with this, but what I really learned earlier this year is the difference between being snapped and being stretched. And there is a difference, because I can honestly say at this point that I have snapped before, and I've also been stretched, and they're different. And now I recognize the differences, and it's important, because you don't want to be out here snapped, broken, just done, burnt out, all of the things. But stretching is really important, and it can be painful, but it's great for growth. It's great for recovery. It's necessary. And so, like I said, like, stretching can hurt, but it's actually really good for you. And so we have to learn the difference between the pain that's going to cause us to grow and the pain that's going to cause us to break. And that's kind of what I've definitely learned this year. So let's talk about church. When I moved to, I'm going to take you guys a little bit further back. I grew up in a mega church. I grew up going to Christian Cultural Center in Brooklyn, New York with Pastor A.R. Bernard. And that was so foundational for me and the woman that I am today. Just to be exposed to that kind of environment in so many ways. It was really like formative and foundational and all the things. So when I got into college, because as most of us know, and if you don't know, like, for a lot of young Christians, which I got saved very early. For a lot of young Christians, like, when you go into college, that is a time of such testing. I swear the enemy be like, let's go. Like, they're about to be isolated in a new environment with new freedom. Let's go. Yeah. And I got okay. I got because when I went to college, I wanted to go away to college. Okay. I wanted to go to Atlanta. Atlanta has always had a special place in my heart. I don't want to live there, but I do love visiting. And so what better thing to do than spend 4 years in college in Atlanta? I just couldn't think of anything better to do. But my parents were like, no, you're going to this college close to home because we can afford it. And they were paying for it, so I can't really argue with them. So my Atlanta dreams were crushed, and that's probably God. And so I ended up going to college in the Bronx. And I was excited because I was like, okay, great. I'm going to college in the Bronx. I'm familiar with the Bronx. I have family in the Bronx. I've been driving through New York City my whole entire life growing up. So this is cool. My church is in Brooklyn. My school is in the Bronx. So me growing up in the suburbs, I didn't really realize how like the MTA works and the subway and the buses and all that. But I learned very quickly that I have no problem getting to places on the bus, on the subway, but coming back home on the bus and the subway is an entirely different story. I don't have the patience for it. I'm a suburbs queen. I love to drive. That whole waiting and delays and public transportation life, I'm too bougie for it. Let's just call it what it is. I'm too bougie for it. Okay. So that being said, before I learned that about myself, I was like, I'm going to go to college and I'm going to go to church because the Bronx and Brooklyn are not that bad of a drive or whatever. But I didn't have a car at first, so I would have had to take public transportation to make it to Brooklyn. And the idea of getting on public transportation on a Sunday morning to go from the Bronx to Brooklyn, I was just like, absolutely not. And so I ended up not going to church. I ended up getting into a relationship that did not bring me closer to God. And I was just living my life. I was living for myself. I had this newfound freedom. I didn't have my parents telling me what to do. I was making decisions for myself. And so I kind of just gave in to what I wanted to do and not really what was God telling me to do. And so fast forward, when I finished college, I then got into a relationship. I graduated in 2018, and then by 2019, I was already in a serious relationship and planning to move from New York to North Carolina. So not only that, but I was also married by 2020. In the beginning of 2020, I got married. And so my whole mentality was like, okay, I've moved away. I've started this new life. I had a marriage counselor that was like speaking into my life. And I don't know if it was just him or others, but the advice was like, when you move, when you start your new life, make sure you get plugged into church. And I heard it. I was with it. I was for it. I love that advice. But where it kind of fell apart in more ways than one was that I was like, okay, I'm married and I want to find a church that's going to pour into my marriage. But if you ever have heard my story or read my book, you know that even though I was married, I was still very much alone, like literally alone. I was at our new home in North Carolina, and my at the time husband was still working his job in New York. So we did not, I was waiting for him to come home to North Carolina so that we could go check out some churches together. And then it just didn't happen. And the pandemic happened. So we're definitely not visiting any churches then. And so it just didn't come together. And then even though I wasn't going to church, I was still like locked in with God on a new level. I'll definitely say, like, I think not my first heartbreak, but like one of my heartbreaks in college definitely pushed me closer to God because I needed him to heal my broken heart, and he did. But I was still like lukewarm living, you know, kind of like on the fence, kind of in, kind of out, kind of like, yeah, like God is good and he came through for me, but also like I'm kind of angry about stuff and I just want to live in my flesh and have sex and do what I want to do. And so it was like I took one step closer to God and then like 2 steps back. But then becoming a wife, a mom, a homeowner, all the things so quickly really pushed me back into God. And then when the pandemic started, I was like, if this is how we're going out, I got to get right with God. And so again, I got closer to God, and being in an abusive relationship, the environment is just so toxic and chaotic that I needed God's peace to like keep me mentally sane and at bay. So like I wasn't going to church because of the pandemic, but I was always playing worship music in my house, and I listened to so much Miles Monroe during that time, and I was in my word. And so it's like, even though I wasn't in church, I was still doing my best to be close to God, but that community aspect was definitely missing. And then my marriage ended up falling apart. I ended up moving back home, and that was such a time for me and God too, because I was really humbled. I was like, oh my gosh, God, like here I was out here living my life so selfishly, only thinking about my desires, just out here being hard-headed and stubborn and dumb. And you kept me, you protected me, you brought me back home. You're so good to me, God. And so I think during the pandemic with a newborn, I think like God had me to himself during that time. And I really wanted to go to church, but the idea of like, my parents at this time had shifted from the church that I grew up in to a smaller local church, and I just didn't really feel like that was my home for several reasons. Also, just like growing up in a mega church and then going to like a small local community church was a big shift for me, and I wasn't ready for it. So on top of having a newborn, so again, like I didn't go to church, but I was live streaming. Like I during the pandemic on Sunday, I was like in church all day, because I was just from this live stream to that live stream to this live stream to that replay all day, and I loved it to be honest. But at some point it's like, okay, we got to stop hopping on the live streams and we got to get back in the building. So it was hard because I had a baby, and also my family was preparing to move to Florida. And so I shifted my attention from finding a church in New York to finding a church in Florida. And thanks to social media, I saw an elementary friend, like literally somebody that I've known for years. Our families have known each other for years. I knew that she and her family were in the Tampa Bay area, and I knew that that's where my family was moving. So I reached out to her and I was like, hey girl, I see that you're in the Tampa Bay area. I'm about to be down there too. Can you please recommend a church for me? She was like, you got to go to Grace Family Church. Like, it's amazing here. And so God is good. I love how he works things out. As soon as we moved to Florida, so Grace Family Church it's a local mega church, if there is such thing, because it's definitely a mega church by the numbers. It's one of the fastest growing churches in the country. Supposedly, that's what the pastors say, is what I heard. But what I like about it is that they're not trying to like take over the world or the country. They're literally just focused on the Tampa Bay area. So at the time, they had just opened up their 7th campus by my house. And so it was perfect timing, because they had just gotten back into the building that they purchased. So when I came to this church, it was like relatively a newer branch, and coming to church in Florida was a big adjustment for me, because like I said, I grew up in a mega church in New York City, predominantly African American church. And so just the style of worship to just the culture and the congregation, it was just a big difference. Church was like 2 hours, so it'll be like the first hour is like praise and worship, and then the whatever's left whether that's an hour or less would be the message. And also just the depth that Pastor Bernard speaks with was just so good. Like, I grew up in a church where everybody got their notebooks out, because we're learning today, we're going deep today. And so like that was the church culture that I grew up in. Like, I didn't have community. Like I would see my grandma at church, I would see some of my parents' friends, but I didn't have like I wouldn't consider myself like a church kid or any of that. But like that's what I grew up in. So then when I moved to Florida and church was like a little bit over an hour, and it was like, hey, come as you are, shorts, flip-flops, grab you some coffee, worship's 15 minutes, announcements is another 10 minutes, the message is another 30-40 minutes. I was just like, bruh, what is this? Like, if I'm late to church, I don't miss the whole worship. The message is 30 minutes and it's real cute, but like I need a little bit more. I need something more. And so on top of that, I was also navigating working again, because I had taken a break when I first had my daughter. These stories are in my book. I'm not going to unpack them, and they're probably in previous episodes. But yeah, I was back to being a working mom with a toddler in a new state, a new house, new environment, new church. There was so much going on that me feeling like, I don't know about this church, I don't know if I really fit in here, church kind of went on the back burner for me. And so I would just like choose my sleep or whatever. Like, I wouldn't go. I don't know, I was just very like not committed. But one thing about my church is that they have a really great children's ministry. Like, they really pour into the youth. And so my daughter loves going to church. And when I realized that I was spiritually like was backsliding and falling into old patterns and habits, I was like, I gotta get back into church. And my daughter really loves to go to church, and so there was times where I was like, I just went so that she could go, because I'm like, it's gonna be crazy if my kid is going to church and I'm not, somebody else is taking her. Like, I'm not about to do that. So my daughter was the reason that I returned back to church. And then I don't know how much time passed, but after a while I just felt like I was supposed to do more, and that more looked like serving in the church. And so I decided to get involved with the women's ministry, and I was so excited about it. I felt like it was time. I felt like God had done so much in me, in my heart, over the last year or whatever. So I was like, yeah, it's definitely time to serve. And just, I'd never done that before, because I never had that kind of opportunity in church. And so it was new territory, but I just knew that it was what I was supposed to do. Like, I really believe heavily that you shouldn't just attend your church, but really get involved and see how you can serve and just be a part of it, you know? So I followed that advice, and I met with the women's ministry coordinator, whatever her title is. And I got to know her and just share some of my heart and my story and my testimony. And so I ended up leading 2 groups somehow. Oh, because I actually got involved in the groups at my church before I started leading. So my church has this one group that I absolutely love called the Freedom Group. And baby, that thing goes deep, okay? Like, we get into it all. We get into like, who is God, who is the enemy, unforgiveness, generational patterns, ways that you might be partnering with the enemy, lies that you're believing, and so much more. And it's very deep, and you get exposed in the most beautiful way. I like to think of it as an invitation to step into greater healing, because that's what it is when God exposes these things, these lies, these tactics that the enemy is using. So I end up getting invited. And that was another thing, the power of invitation. I got invited to take this freedom class group, whatever you want to call it. And I would not have taken that class if not for the invitation. So I get invited to this group, and I loved it. And then the leaders recognized my potential, and they asked me to lead a group. And so I did. And also on top of that, we just have like our general women's Bible study that I decided to step in and serve with. So that's how that all got started. Right before our groups were supposed to kick off, we have this really big women's conference that we do almost every year. And I went last year and I loved it. It was such a powerful experience for me. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go back, and I can't wait to go back next year. So next year, aka this year, rolls around, and I'm at the conference, and something was just off. I don't know. Something was off. And long story short, I noticed that they had secular music playing throughout the day. And you know, I'm not holier than thou. I definitely still listen to some secular music from time to time. I will say, like, majority of the music I listen to at this point is Christian, but from time to time, especially, you know, with me being at the gym, and sometimes when you're driving around, you just want to listen to something different. So, you know, I'm not against secular music, but like, to hear it at church, I was like, what's going on? What's happening? Like, Ariana, what are you doing here? Like, I was so thrown off, because I felt like, here we are for a women's conference, and there's such a huge opportunity for somebody to have an encounter with Jesus, an encounter with the Holy Spirit, and we are here playing what? Like, I get it, girls just want to have fun, you know, I'm here for it, but like, I feel like we're missing out on an opportunity to really set the tone and create an environment where somebody can have an encounter with the living God. And so that just really threw me off. And I was just like, what are we doing? Because Like, I feel like spiritually, the times that we're in are just so critical. And like, if we're not locked in with God, like, what are we doing? We're setting ourselves up for failure, especially as a church. And that's when I started to get a little bit concerned. I was like, all right, I already had to like force myself to stay at this church because my flesh wanted to leave. And now we're here playing all this stuff, and I'm just like, God, like, what's going on? Because I believe that you are moving in this hour. I believe that things are happening and shifting, and you are working in this hour, and I want to be partnered with that. I don't want to be a part of a church that is really just a social club or a party. And it really rubbed me the wrong way, and I had to like talk to my campus pastor's wife about it, because I was just like, is it just me, or am I tripping here? Am I missing something? Like, what are we doing? So I had a conversation with my pastor's wife, and I just prayed about it. I talked to some people that I trust about it, because I was really ready to leave this church. I was like, if this church doesn't have the Holy Spirit, like, I'm out. And I was I was waiting on the green light from God to leave my church. I was like, you just say the word, God, I'm out. But the word never came. It never came. And I talked to my brother, and he was like, this is what church is about. It's about community. It's about loving imperfect people. That's what God does for us, and that's what we are to do for others. And so I was challenged to stay. And then it was crazy because like I was reading through the Bible in a year, and my reading for that day was Jonah. And if you don't know anything about the book of Jonah, it's a quick and easy read. Definitely go read it. It's powerful. But Jonah tried to run from his godly assignment, his God-given assignment. And that didn't work out so well for him, because he ended up in the belly of a whale. And so he finally decided to obey the Lord. And not only that, but his disobedience also affected the people around him, because he tried to get on a boat in the opposite direction of where God had called him. And that boat went into such troubled waters that, yeah, the sailors were just like praying for their lives at that point. And it was all because of Jonah. And I felt like God was saying to me, like, do not be like Jonah. I've called you to this place. I've equipped you in this place. This is your assignment right now. Don't be like Jonah. Don't run. And so I was like, all right. I'll stay. And it ended up being the most amazing experience ever. Both of the groups that I led, the women that came to my table, I just found so much love and appreciation for each and every one of them, and their stories and their journeys. And there's nothing like doing life in community. Healthy community is so important to the human experience. And so to be able to walk alongside people through life, it was just like revolutionary for me. But it was also difficult, not gonna lie, because I'm dealing with people, and people are imperfect. So it was interesting to say the least, you know. And then also as a leader, like, I'm constantly checking my own heart to make sure that my heart is in the right place and that I'm looking with the right perspective. So it was challenging, but the difference in how I recognize that, okay, like, God is stretching me, because like I mentioned in the beginning, like, I know what it's like to snap. I've been very broken, especially in my nursing career. I've had mental breakdowns because of my job, and I'll never forget like the first mental breakdown I had during COVID, where it was just so bad, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm so angry with the things that are happening, like mentally, emotionally. I can't do this anymore. Like, this is crazy. I hate this. It was so bad, so bad. And then fast forward to like the second time I had a mental breakdown, where I just like stayed up the whole entire night. I couldn't even sleep, and I was just crying, and I couldn't stop crying. And again, it was like, I can't do this anymore. Those times I definitely snapped. But what God did in me earlier this year was me being stretched. And it was different, because the difference was I definitely wanted to give up. I was definitely tired. I wanted to go home and go to bed, but I had to show up because I had a responsibility. And each time that I showed up, especially towards the end, it was like, okay, God, like, I'm here. You said this is my assignment. You told me this is where you want me to be. So I'm here, but I'm tired. And so I'm going to need your help, God. I'm going to need your help because I can't do this on my own strength because I don't have no strength right now. So I'm definitely going to need you. And it's like every time I would pray that prayer, every time I would invite God in, he showed up. Whether it's like the message that night spoke directly to me, or like a new person came to my table, or one of the girls who had been at my table had like a really great testimony. It's just like somehow, some way, like God would show up and I would be just energized and filled with excitement again for that night. And that happened week after week after week, where God would just like show up and fill me up for that moment, and just give me what I needed for that moment. And so it was very beautiful for me to learn that kind of dependency on God. And that's why I knew that like when everything ended, even though I was burnt out, even though I was depleted, even though I was tired, I knew that God would fill me again. And that's why I decided to call this episode My Cup Never Runs Dry, because my cup never ran dry. And I'm so excited. I love the space that I'm in right now. Over the summer, definitely God restored and refilled me as I spent time with him and as I focused on just being a mom. And that's another thing that I wanted to touch on. Just talking about little motherhood updates. But yeah, like I feel refreshed, restored, renewed, like all the R words. Like I feel ready to go again. And it's been beautiful. School has been going on for almost 2 weeks now, crazy enough. And I feel so good. Like I feel like I'm thriving again. Whereas at the beginning of the summer, I was like, bro, like I don't want to hear an alarm for another lifetime. Now I've been getting up at 5:45-ish. Actually, I woke up at 5:40 today. I was really proud of myself. But I've been getting up early and hitting the gym, and I've been sticking to my bedtime routine, getting things ready the night before for school to make the mornings run smoother. And they have been. And I'm so proud of myself because that's growth. We have not been late to school, and we don't plan to be. And so, yeah, I'm back serving at church again for this fall semester. And once again, I'm in 2 groups. But one of the groups is only every other week, so that's a little bit easier on my schedule. And I'm doing the freedom group again. I cannot wait to meet the ladies that I will be journeying with in a few weeks. And instead of doing the general women's Bible study, I have relaunched, I guess, single moms on my campus with a friend that I admire, and I just look forward to working with her. So it's just a completely new experience. God is doing a new thing for sure, and I'm so excited for this new season, this new chapter that we have entered, that I have entered, and I'm excited to just see all that he does. And yeah, so I wanted to talk about that because I don't know what is going on in your life as you listen to this, where you're at today. I do know what it's like to be burnt out. I do know what it's like to be tired. I do know what it's like to be in pain. But you have to learn the difference between being snapped and being stretched, because God doesn't want to break you. God doesn't want to see you as a shadow of yourself. God doesn't want you out here having breakdowns, meltdowns. On TikTok, they be calling them mentee bees. If you know, you know. But yeah, like I think part of life abundantly is God like increasing our capacity and our maturity and our capabilities and stuff. And the way that he does that is through hard times, is, see James 1. It is through being stretched. And if you've ever been stretched before, like literally physically, if you ever stretch, that it might hurt a little, but it's actually really good for you. And so if you're listening to this, I just want you to look at your life, and if you know that you are where God told you to go, if you know that you are where God asked you to be, if you know that you are where God has assigned you, then, stay put, stick it out. He's got you. Don't try to walk through that season in your own power and your own strength, but like literally invite him in, tap in with him, and like let him know that you need his help and his guidance and all that. And just know that if you are truly walking with God, in alignment with God, he's not going to let your cup run dry. Actually, your cup is going to overflow. Actually, you're going to get a refill. Actually, when you walk with God, you're always going to have something to give, something to pour out. And so if you've been feeling empty and depleted, maybe it's time to tap back in. So that's why. That was moral of the story. But before I wrap up, I do want to just touch on motherhood. Motherhood has been really good for me recently. It's been very fulfilling, just to watch my daughter grow and watching like her capabilities and her skills just increase. This summer she did swim lessons and gymnastics, and it was her second time with both of those things, but it was a different experience just because of where she's at in life. So like swim lessons, my daughter is really good in the pool with a life jacket, but she doesn't know how to swim without a life jacket, and then she doesn't like getting her face wet, so that's the thing. But she made a lot of progress this summer with swim lessons, and I could tell by the end of the summer she was just over it. But we're gonna get her right, because we can't be out here not knowing how to swim, okay? And then gymnastics was really cool too, because we had done mommy and me gymnastics when she was 2, and that was really stressful for me because my daughter is very much a free thinker and she doesn't care what's going on. She wants to do what she wants to do. So 2-year-old her like was not following the instructions at all. She wanted to jump and do what she wanted to do. And then me, I'm like, girl, like, please, you're the only child here that's not following directions. Please get it together. And on top of that, I was just exhausted from working overnights. So it was just, yeah, we stopped going to gymnastics because it was not good for my mental health. I was like, we're going to try again when you're older. And so we did. I put her back in gymnastics this summer, and it was so good. It was amazing to watch her learn how to like move her body in new ways as she did her back bends and her handstands and her cartwheels. And it was, in the beginning, you could see her brain working so hard trying to process how to put her feet and her arms and everything. But like now, today's actually the last day, and she is like cartwheeling and handstanding and flipping and rolling and all the things, and she loves it, and it's been beautiful to watch her grow. And I can't wait because we're about to do soccer this fall, and I just know like that's gonna be so much fun, and it's just beautiful to watch her blossom and develop. And over the summer, I also decided that for me and for her to like get out the house and enjoy life, try new things, because y'all know I'm big on trying new things. We had Thursday fun day because I don't like going out on the weekends when everybody else is out and things are crowded. So I was like, Thursdays we're going out. We don't have any commitments. We're going out. And we had some fun. We went to the Florida Children's Museum, I think it's called, in Bonnet Springs Park in Lakeland, Florida. The best children's museum and park we have ever been to. Okay, like that park should be the standard for parks across the country. I can't wait to go back. It was such an amazing experience. And we went to the water parks, we went to amusement parks, we went to the beach. We just tried to do all of the things. We went to Chuck E. Cheese. She loves Chuck E. Cheese. So that was really fun. Quality time for me and for her. And I just love, like I've said over and over, I love watching who she's becoming. And also it just fills my heart because it's really like the simple things and the memories. Like I have so many core childhood memories that I get to reminisce and share, and even now like recreate, because some of my core childhood memories were like vacationing in Florida. So now to like live in Florida and to be able to just hop in the car and drive to some of the places where my best memories took place, and now bring my daughter to these places, there's nothing like it. And so I'm just really enjoying it. And now she's back in school, and I'm loving watching all the things that she's learning, how her handwriting is developing, how she navigates relationships with her classmates and her teachers. It's literally just such a beautiful thing. And she's always been very well spoken. So yeah, we be talking, but yeah, so it's almost an hour. I've said all that I have to say. Yeah, let's hope next time Facebook participates with the connection. But we made it. We're here. We got it done. And we will be dropping some new episodes in the future. I know my brother said he wants to hop on, so that's going to be fun to hear from his perspective on things. And I do have a couple other special guests that I need to get on this podcast. So yeah, we're not going anywhere. Stay tuned. Make sure you're subscribed. Definitely subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on Apple Podcasts and everywhere else so that you do not miss when these episodes drop. Shout out to my friend Jesse. I know he was one of the people that's like, yo, where you at? Where the podcast at? What's going on? And he shared with me that he had been going through some things, and it was my podcast that really helped him to move forward. And that means a lot to me. That meant more than he could even know, because I just do my podcast. I just be on here chatting, and I just hope that you guys get something good from it. And to hear that like it helps somebody out of a dark place is amazing. So yeah, we're definitely not stopping anytime soon. I still got to figure out the consistency in my schedule. That's another thing. I'm still like readjusting to like, okay, baby girl's back in school. I have so much time. Well, not so much time, but like I have the school day to get things done, which is plenty of time to be productive. So I'm like, okay, God, what are we doing today? So as long as he gives me the inspiration and the message and the guests, we'll be here on your phone, on your computer, on your TV, on your mobile device, on your device every Tuesday. Get up 10 Tuesdays. Yeah. Thank you guys so much.